to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Love is right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatest flow. With inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, it's October 18th. We're well into the fourth quarter. And the end of 2020 is right around the corner. 75 days left until the end of this year. How do we contend with time? That's not today's topic, but I think it's a worthy question based on today's topic. And today's topic is a question, it's something I want us to begin thinking about. And I believe it's a great question given all that's going on in the world, all the different things that increases our passion, gets us emotional, has us worked up, and I would say more than anything, consumes our mind and our time. And that question is, what are the fundamentals of life? Like, what are the hardcore fundamentals of life? Now, you guys know we've been talking about, at least for the last few months, we talked about the 7 steps of personal development. And based on this conversation, I've been doing a lot of thinking, meditating, praying, and just getting curious about how I can help. I mean, my purpose to help myself and others live the best life possible. And I see what's going on in our country. I see what's happening around the world. And my mind right away goes to, but what about us? What about us? What about our lives? And how is it that we can so quickly become distracted and begin to make priorities out of things that fundamentally, when we think about life, when we think about the gift of life, when we think about how precious this time is, how is it that we don't spend more time? How is it that we don't ask ourselves more questions about life? Like, how is that? Then my mind began to go back to 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, where many of the quotes, many of the scriptures we read, many of the religious texts, many of the things that move us deeply, even now, those things were written. Those things were said. I mean, you can go back 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And it seems that our ancestors, it seems like those before us, they had a better grip on this thing we call life. So then that got me to thinking too. And then more than anything, what began to surface for me is, well, many of us don't know the fundamentals of life because we're so distracted. And because there are people out here who say, well, I got that. And by the way, if you miss a fundamental, I can cure that, or I can at least make the symptoms go away. And because of that, we don't focus in on the one gift we have. And that's the opportunity to breathe this air and live. And so I want to explore this question this morning. What are the fundamentals of life? Now, when I started thinking about fundamentals, what are fundamentals? The first thing that came to my mind was sports. I play sports. I've been playing sports most of my life. Still play sports. And one of the games I love is basketball. And there's one man that has been called Mr. Fundamental when it comes to basketball. Most of you all who follow basketball, you know the name already. Tim Duncan. But here's the thing, for those of you who don't know who Tim Duncan is, here's the thing about Tim Duncan. NBA, All-Star, likely Hall of Famer, who, when you look at his game, nothing sexy about it, nothing flashy about it, but he dominated. He dominated in the game. And how did he dominate? By perfecting the fundamentals of the game. So let's look at this from a broader view. When you look at basketball in particular, right? Football, whatever game that you are aware of, I want you to think about the fundamentals of that game, whether it's tennis, swimming, whatever it is that you do. You say, well, Linal, I don't have a game. You have a game. All of us are playing a game somewhere. So I want you to think about the fundamentals of that game. Maybe your game is business. What are the fundamentals of business? For instance, like fully understanding your financials, accounting. Like, how are you playing when it comes to the fundamentals? And if you're not playing according to the fundamentals, what has you distracted? Because fundamentals make winners. So let's go back to Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan didn't have a flashy game. Layups, straight up and down dribbling, while being able to position his body to post up the player. Could post up basically anybody in the game with the fundamental steps of posting up, right? Not a lot of double pumps, not a lot of, spinning around, but still dominated the game with the fundamentals. Now, why is this important? I believe that we are making life harder. I believe that many of us are making life harder because we are not paying attention to the fundamentals. The simple layups of life. The simple backboard shots of life. The simple dribble of life. We're not paying attention to the fundamentals. And then I began to think about this in the context of the 4 pillars of life. You guys know, in terms of how I think about life, I think about life in the context of 4 pillars. 1 being health and well-being. 2 being relationships and love. 3 being the work I do and the money I make to sustain me and my family. And 4, but definitely not least, is my purpose and my overall spirituality, my connection to God, and my reason for being. 4 pillars of life. So I began thinking through, like, what are the fundamentals of life from that perspective? And as I began thinking about that, I'm going to tell you, man, my heart got heavy. And the reason my heart got heavy is I began thinking about conversations I've been in with clients, conversations I've been in with listeners. Some of the things I've talked about at the summits and conferences I've held, workshops. And I want you just to stick with me for a second. But like even when it comes to health and well-being, like when we think about the fundamentals there, here's one of the fundamentals. One of the fundamentals of health and well-being is to drink lots of water. Simple fundamental. How many of us do it? How many of us, when we think about our health and well-being, and we don't want the aches and pains, we don't want the headaches, we don't want the exhaustion, the fatigue, these are things that we do not want. But when it comes down to a simple fundamental of drinking water, I mean, it's been proven over and over. There are a plethora of books simply on water, the beauty of water, the healing aspects of water. But then when it comes down to actual execution, we completely, and not all of us, some of us, you're great at it and you're experiencing the benefits. And it's likely right now you're like, yeah, Linal, I get it. And what I want you to think about is maybe for you is not water, but what area of life are you completely skipping a fundamental? Just simple fundamentals. Simple fundamentals. Health and well-being. Well, we know that we should eat more fruits and vegetables. Like we know that. There's not a debate about that. We can debate about all types of things. We can debate about whether Ice Cube should be saying what he's saying right now. We could debate about a lot of things. One thing we don't have to debate about when it comes to health and well-being. When it comes to health and well-being, we know that water is the essence of life and that we should eat more fruits and vegetables. Why don't we? Why don't we? And this is a legitimate question I'm asking from love. Because when we think about fundamentals, this is how we build everything else. And like I said, I'm thinking about the conversations that we've been in. 7 steps to personal development. First, we create our life's vision. This is the way I want to live life. Second, we begin to develop our self-discipline. Third, how to be self-motivated. Right? Fourth, how to be courageously curious. Fifth, how to leverage mentorship and coaching. Sixth, how to develop your confidence, your conviction and faith. 7, how to continually learn. Like when we look at those 7 steps of personal development, I began asking myself, okay, Linal, what's missing here? Because you can take a leap towards that, but is that really the foundation? And in meditating and praying, it came clear to me, it's like, no. The foundation are the simple fundamentals. And if you can't hold down the simple fundamentals, you can love the 7 steps of personal development. You can think that series was the best series I've ever done, and it won't mean a thing. It won't register if you are not practicing fundamentals in your life, the fundamentals of life. So this morning, my big question is then what are the fundamentals? What are the fundamentals of living? And where should we be focused as people, I believe, who ultimately care about living the best life possible? If you tune in every Sunday, many of you do, 7 a.m., then you care. It's early in the morning, so many other things you could be doing. So you care. So then what are the fundamentals? And if you got your notepad and your pen out, I want you just to write that down. Write that question down. Like, what are the fundamentals of life? And for the things that I distinguish as fundamentals, why am I overlooking them? Like, I'm going to tell you something, man. We got to get back to simplicity. Some of us are asking for things and praying for things that are complicated We're trying to figure out why it's not showing up. Why I'm not being blessed. And it's because we're overlooking the simple things. We're overlooking the fundamentals. Let me tell you how Tim Duncan came up. Friday I was playing basketball. We got a bubble group. We call it the bubble group. Just a few of us that get out and play together. And one of the young guys who's on my team, he's one of the youngest guys in the gym. And we're running the court. And he's fast. He's young, but he lacks fundamentals. And so as a result, even with all that youth, even with all that speed, he's struggling. He's taking shots with, somebody in his face. It's actually my brother that was guarding. And he's missing his shots. And I'm telling him, hey, man, bro, let's take open shots. All you got to do is move the ball. Let's take open shots. Even with the dribbling, lots of hot dogging, had a lot of turnovers. And I just kept thinking, like, man, where is this playing out in people's lives, right? Because we can look at someone like that and say, oh, he doesn't understand the fundamentals of this game. But it just kind of got me thinking about, okay, then where don't we understand the fundamentals of this game of life? So we talked about health and well-being, right? Water, fruits, and vegetables. We know that. Why don't we do it? Well, because there are experts out here who say, well, we got an answer for that. If you don't drink enough water, I got a pill you can take. You don't eat enough vegetables, I got a pill you can take. So then we ignore the fundamentals because someone else says, there's no need to worry about the fundamentals. I got a fast track, instant gratification way for you to in many ways, cheat. And so I believe that many of us, we're not focused on the fundamentals of life because there's a story in the background playing that tells us, oh, but I got a cheat code. But my question this morning is, based on what you see around you, do you really think those cheat codes work? Like, do they seem to be working? And then furthermore, are they really working for you? But let's think about it a different way. What about this? Like, let's go just to simple relationships. Well, nothing simple about relationships, but let's go to relationships and love. Like, what are the fundamentals there? Communication. So then, why is it that in our relationships, if communication is fundamental, we know this. Many of us refuse to listen. Many of us refuse to talk. But we still want a deep, loving relationship. Like, how does this work, man? Like, how is it that as people that are walking this planet right now, we've gotten to a point that we are so willing to ignore the fundamentals. And by the way, you may have thoughts about, other fundamentals. Let me know. Give me a call. 773-591-1690. But the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? So then let's take it to work and money. Many of us, we've been struggling financially for as long as we can remember. It bothers us. It's the thing we think about the most. You might say, well, Linal, it's easy for you to talk about water and fruits and vegetables. You know how much organic fruit costs. You know how much organic vegetables cost. I live in a food desert. It's easy for you to talk about. I understand that that's a fundamental. I just don't have access. All right, so then let's focus on the fundamentals of financials. Like, if money truly is your pain point, how much focus have you put there? What's the last book you read about how to turn your situation around? Like how often are you looking at your account? Are you operating from a budget? Like these are financial fundamentals. Like these are just the fundamentals, right? You go into any business. You go into any business, any corporate organization. One of the reasons they're successful is because they measure everything. And one of the things they measure most is their money. So you say, man, I'm struggling financially. So are you measuring your money? What percent are you spending on clothes? Do you know? What percent are you spending on food? Do you know? What percent are you spending on medicine? Do you know? Like I could keep going. But fundamentally, we have complaints. We become victims of things that we can solve if we begin to put our focus. I said it, some time ago, that where awareness goes, energy flows. So then you wonder why things aren't flowing. You wonder why things aren't working. Well, likely it's because your awareness isn't there. Your awareness isn't there. So then you want to be successful? You want to live the best life? What are the fundamentals? What are the fundamentals? You think about work. Many of us, that's where we spend the majority of our time, the majority of our lives. We spend more time at work, more time working, more time in front of our screens, more time on Zoom nowadays than we spend doing anything else. Our children included. So then, what are the fundamentals of work? How does one become successful in the workplace? Do you really care? Do you really want to know? Do you truly want to be successful? Because, I imagine that if you truly wanted to be successful, if you were taking full responsibility for your career, then that's where your focus would be. Because, by the way, that's where you spend most of your time. See, I believe there's a payoff for being a victim. There's a payoff for letting it all happen to you. And many of us, we are where we are now because we've become addicted to the dopamines of the payoff of victimization. Let me say that again. We've become addicted to the dopamines, right? The chemical hit that, that felt good. We've become addicted to the dopamines of victimization. The payoff of victimization. You say, well, Linal, how does victimization have a payoff? Oh, well, you get to be right. Man, doesn't it feel good when you're right? I mean, think about it. I mean, think about the last time somebody put their head down and said, you know what? You're right. How did that feel? I guarantee you there was a little hormone hit that hit the brain. Like, ooh, ding, 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 ding. I'm right. So I get to be right. So my boss is unfair to me. You sit back, you just wait for the next unfair act. And when it happens, for a moment, you're like, see, you get the payoff, but then you got to deal with the consequences of being right. Because if your boss is being unfair, well, ultimately that doesn't feel good, but what are you going to do about it? Is your focus there? Have you Googled how to create fairness in your career? Like, do you really care? Like, do you really, really care? Like, do you really want to take responsibility? Or is it easier to say, oh, look what's happening to me? They don't care about me. All the things that people are doing to me. Woe is me. Woe is me. And you become so addicted to that feeling that's where your focus is. That's what you think about. And when it comes to just the simple fundamentals of life, you take no responsibility. None. Hey man, I'm not trying to be popular. I'm just trying to help. I'm really trying to help. And this might not be for everybody. It might not be. Let me tell you something, man. I had a whole different title. I had a whole different topic. Yesterday, I was putting everything together. And then, I realized I started working before I said a prayer. So when I finished, I was like, well, let me say a little, prayer. Ask God to download some wisdom. Ask the Creator to help me help people. So I did that. This morning, I woke up and it was like, nah, you need to talk about the fundamentals. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have that down on my notes. I don't have that on paper. You don't need it. Just pray for a download of wisdom. So, all right, that's what I did in the car all the way here. So I'm gonna tell you something. You might not like it, but consider it's coming from a good place. It's coming from my heart. Ultimately, it's coming from the Creator. We gotta wake up, man. We gotta wake up. We gotta wake up. We sleep. I don't care last time you put #woke. You sleep. If you are not hitting the fundamentals and the 4 pillars of life, you're sleeping. You're sleeping in that area. And that area is going to become a pain point. It's going to become a pain point. So all I'm saying is, let's wake up to what matters. Let's wake up to what matters. That means it might be time to turn the television off. That means it might be time to delete the games off your phone. That means it might be time to make some hard decisions because you want to be more concerned about the fundamentals of life than everything else. But one of the reasons we're not concerned about the fundamentals of life is because we're distracted. I was watching this YouTube video. This guy, he was like, hey man, let me tell you why video games are the worst thing ever. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Check this out. Start talking about, so I check out the video, it's about 10 minutes. He started talking about the way video games hijack the brain. How it hijacks the dopamine system. And it creates these tiny goals, right? These tiny goals. So you think about Candy Crush, you think about, I don't know what the latest is. But whatever the latest is, you think about these games, and what it does is it creates these little short intervals where you have these micro goals. See, and here's the thing. As human beings, we've been created to achieve goals. Right? So the psychologists that work for the gaming companies know this. The psychologists that work for the news stations, the news outlets, the news networks, they know this. Right? The psychologists that work for these organizations that, basically provide all things that we consume, they know this. And so what they're doing on a consistent basis is they're saying, how can we interrupt your goal setting process and insert our goal setting process? So that's what we're up against. Because if I can get you to begin using my goal setting process, right? And by the way, I'm the organization that you're buying from. I'm the news outlet. I'm the video game. But if I can somehow hijack your goal setting process and insert a new goal setting process and then shorten the intervals for achievement, I can get you hooked. So he was talking about how video games basically rot the brain out. And how what happens with video games is you start to get these dopamine hits right back to back. Pow, 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 pow. The brain's not designed for that. Right? That dopamine hit is supposed to come after you build something. Right? And it takes days. It takes hours to build something. You ever been outside or you ever buy something from IKEA? You know, when you're putting the parts together and you go through the frustration of putting these parts together. Maybe you don't get it done that night. So you get in the shower to go to bed. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about, okay, what am I missing with this piece of furniture? That's what you're thinking about because that becomes the next goal. That becomes the next thing. And so our goals are things that when you're completely focused, that's what you're thinking about. But I'm afraid this morning that many of us, we're thinking about how to beat the next level in the video game. Many of us, we're thinking about the, what the Republicans are saying and what the Democrats are saying versus actually saying, okay, you know what I need to do? I need to download my ballot and do some research. I'm thinking about what they said today. Because guess what? They're going to say something different tomorrow. That's going to be the next goal. What did they say? So you can get that dopamine hit. I know. Many of us, our goals, I had a financial goal, I had a budget, but it got blew out the water because, hey, I didn't know Amazon was going to throw Prime Day for 2 days. I had no idea. So then that became the next goal. Click. Where can I save the most money? That became the next goal. You wake up thinking about it, you go to bed thinking about it. That's my next goal. And then when you find a good deal, you get a dopamine hit. Woo, that felt good. And so you're hooked. You're hooked and you don't even know it. And by the way, many of us who are hooked on things that have nothing to do with the fundamentals of life will turn around and look in the attic and say, oh, look at them. They need to do better. We'll turn our nose up. We'll drive past homeless people. Well, they should have just done better. Don't even realize we're in the same situation. You're hooked too. Only difference is you're functional. I was telling somebody this week, man, when I first got into real estate, I had a guy who was hooked on crack working for me. And he was hooked on crack. He's a phenomenal worker. But what would happen is his goal was always the next high. I was paying him good. He knew how to do a lot of things. But we get started on Saturday morning, fixing, we gut out a building. We start fixing the building. By 11 o'clock, he come to me. He said, hey, boss, I'm sick. I got to take a break. I knew. I was in my early 20s back then, but I knew I couldn't fight that. Nothing you can do about that. I said, well, what you need? Well, I need enough to go and get what I need so I'm not sick and I can come back and work. How long is it going to take you? An hour and a half. I go in my pocket, give him what he needed. He'd go away. He'd come back, have a little goofy smile on his face. He didn't have teeth, all gums. And I said, you feeling gummy now, huh? He'd be like, oh, you funny, man. He'd get back to work. Hooked. And you can look at that story and you shake your head. You can feel sad. But what are you hooked on? I had somebody say, well, Linal, you were supporting his habit. Oh, okay. Well, look, the way I looked at it back then was better he worked for it than hit somebody over the head. But let's turn this about, let's not make this about that. What about you? What are you hooked on? See, all of a sudden, we can feel immense sadness for someone else when we see that they're addicted. But we very quickly look over. We very quickly look over the places where we perform as addicts in our own lives. Because let's be clear. If we're talking about the fundamentals are simple. Drink water, eat fruits and vegetables, but you're addicted. You can't do that because, let's call it what it is, because you're addicted. Maybe it's to sugar. By the way, did you know that sugar is more addictive than cocaine? So while you're saying, oh, he's killing himself, what are you doing? What are you doing? And guess what? You say, oh, I can't believe he had to stop working. Oh, but you have to stop working too? You got to take sugar breaks too? Guess what? That's going to kill you too. See, we got this thing, man, where one person is, oh, they're okay over here, and this person's not okay over there, and we're completely distracted by everybody else. But let's take a look at me. And let me tell you something, man. I've been taking a hard look at myself this week. I had to do some things. Because when this thing got downloaded in me, I said, whoa, okay, where am I not paying attention to the fundamentals? Just simple fundamentals. Simple fundamentals. Where am I not paying attention to the fundamentals? And here's another thing we do. We start ranking it. Well, that ain't me. I got that part. Okay, what about all 4 pillars? Where are your relationships? Do you listen? Can a person talk to you without you getting upset, without your emotions hijacking you? You know, when you are communicating with somebody, can you focus in and fully be with them? Do you have to be the one always talking? Like, what about that? Just the fundamentals. Hey, the fundamentals of a relationship is if you listen twice as much as you talk, your relationship will be good. That's fundamental. Your relationship will be good. You have a good relationship. If you can listen twice as much as you talk, you have a phenomenal relationship. But here's the thing. That's a lot tougher. That's a lot tougher. Some of us are addicted to hearing our own voices. Some of us are addicted to what matters to us and nobody else. And we wonder why relationships don't work. Well, maybe it's because you're addicted to me. And let me tell you this. Here's the tough part. Most of us who are addicted that way never see it. We never become aware. But then here's the other thing. Many of us were trying to figure out why the simple aspects of life, that we know should work aren't working. This morning, what are your goals? Here we are in the 4th quarter, 2020. One of the toughest years many of us have experienced in our lifetimes. And I'm going to tell you something about tough times. Either they make you better or you get worse. Like if you came into 2020 with a habit, it's likely that habit's worse. You know, you might have been a light drinker, social drinker when we came into 2020. Now you realize I drink way too much. You might have been a light smoker when we came into 2020. Now you realize I smoke way too much. You know, you might have been a light talker when we came into 2020. Now you realize I talk way too much. But this morning show is about us individually, including me. Am I really truly embracing the fundamentals? Am I really truly embracing the fundamentals? Many of us, man, we get to the hoop of life. We're right next to the goal. But because we haven't embraced the fundamentals, we missed the shot. All we had to do was just hit the layup. But we get extra. I'm so close to the goal, we get extra. And we miss our shots. We miss our shot. Are you missing simple shots this morning? Simple layups in your health. Simple bank shots in your relationship. Just simple. Didn't take much. Just simple moves. Just a simple 2-step dribble in your business. But you tried to put it through your legs and now the ball's out of bounds. You're trying to figure out, now you're trying to pick your business back up. It was supposed to be simple fundamentals. Simple fundamentals in your money. Simple. Right now, some people who struggle with money, you ask them, how much money you have in your wallet right now? They don't even know. Why? You struggle with money because you're not focused on money. Where awareness goes, energy flows. Same thing with spirituality. You feel weak spiritually. You feel disconnected spiritually. Okay, so now what? What are you going to do about it? That doesn't become a priority? If spiritual power in your life is fundamental to everything else that you do, that's not going to become a priority? Many of you, you've gone decades not fully knowing your purpose. You know it's the number one priority. You know it's fundamental to life. There are hundreds of books on purpose. Yet, you haven't embraced that one fundamental. That one fundamental. That one simple fundamental, like knowing your purpose and allowing that to become your North Star. Some of you know your purpose, but you've been afraid. You know it's a fundamental. You know that if you use the guardrails of purpose in your life, that things will start to just work out in a different way. You know it. You know it. But it's so much easier to get up and do that 9 to 5 that you hate. I don't know how that makes sense. I don't know how that makes sense. It's so much easier to take your cues and your directions from someone else. So much easier. Fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? What are the fundamentals of life? What are your fundamentals? I mean, yours might be different. I mean, I'm just taking a broad swing here. Well, but what would you say are your fundamentals? And if they are your fundamentals, are you focused there? Is that the number one priority? And if not, then we have to begin to ask ourselves, why? Why? Why isn't this the priority? What has me distracted? What has gotten into my mind? What has hijacked my goals? I share with my clients all the time, even those of you who join the free webinar on Mondays. I talk about my goals. You know, I share with you, some people may think it's overload. Read my goals every day. I even got the goal sheet here. Why? Because I carry it in my bag. Why? Because I don't want it to get hijacked. I don't want to be playing the wrong game. I got too much to lose. My vision's too clear. I don't want to be playing the wrong game. But many of us, man, because we're not paying attention to the fundamentals. We're not paying attention to the simple fundamentals. Somehow we've gone off the rails. We're completely distracted. We're not even playing our own game. And then you wonder, why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I feel lost? Why do I feel confused? Why when I lay my head down at night, I can't rest well? Well, there's an answer to that. I'm going to cover it in the second hour. There's an answer to that. May not be the answer you want to hear. It's not a pill and it's not an app. It takes a little work, but there's an answer to that. We often wonder why people who do deem themselves as successful have such significant gaps in other places of life. There's an answer for that. I'm going to tell you. Number one reason why is because they abandon the fundamentals. They embrace fundamentals in one place and abandon the fundamentals in the other. Maybe you're really good with money, but your health is out. It's all about fundamentals. Maybe your health is in great shape, but your money's out. It's all about fundamentals. Maybe your career is going places, but your relationship is out. It's all about fundamentals. You making it hard this morning? The idea is that we get back to the simple fundamentals. When we get back, how are you going to play the fourth quarter? It's 2020. How are you going to play the fourth quarter? You going to play your game? Or you going to play somebody else's? We'll be right back. My name is Linal Harris. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. Right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Don't turn that dial.
$16.90 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
As him being $400 million in debt during a recent town hall.
All right. Well, that is right, Pat. There's no app for that. Man. What questions do you have? What questions do you have? I'm just looking here. Man, my heart is heavy. My heart is heavy. And let me tell you something. If you believe that somebody can get something from what I shared this morning already, I'm going to ask that you please share it. And just ask them, are they playing a fundamental game in life? Just put that in the description. Are you playing a fundamental game in life? I think we're complicating this, and one of the reasons it's complicated is because we're so distracted. So then we're trying to use quick hits to fix things. And it takes focus. 4 fundamental pillars in life. You think about it. Why is it so hard? I believe the number one reason it's hard is because we don't have purpose. And without the guardrails of purpose, many of us are so far off track, man, that simple things become tough. My health, I'm gonna save this for the show. What questions you guys have? What questions do you have? Go ahead and put those questions in. If you put a question in already, I'm gonna ask that you copy and paste it. And
The ratings are in.
and just repost it so that way I don't have to scroll through everything. And I'm just looking through what you have here now. Okay, we got. Yeah, it seems like I don't see a lot of questions here. So what I'm gonna ask you to do now is get people you care about on the line. Tell them to watch. This is not even what I planned on talking about. Like I said, man, I woke up this morning, something else got downloaded into my spirit. It was like, nah, this is what they need. You've been asking what folks need. This is what they need. And it's interesting because I've been looking at this across the board in my own life. Just fundamentally, man. Fundamentals. And what's come up for me is the more distracted I am, the harder it is for me to play a fundamental game. One of the things I have people do in the purpose course that I teach, by the way, that course is up and ready for purchase on my website. If you go to linalharris.com, early bird registration, you get 50% off. If you're a Slay Your Goals member, check your email. Slay Your Goals members get exclusive discounts. And so check your email if you're a Slay Your Goals member. But November 7th, I'll be teaching how to discover and live your purpose. And you can register by going to my website. But it's funny because I didn't even test it. I'm about to test it right now. Give me a second. I didn't even test it last night. I just put it up. That's not like me, but let's see here. It's working. So you just go out there and purchase that. It'll be virtual, and so no matter where you are in the country, you can you can be a part of that conversation. All right, let's look at some of these questions here. But first, let me post. I'll just put the website up here. Hey, join me on Mondays. As a matter of fact, this upcoming Monday is going to be the last Monday for a couple of weeks because my family and I will be on vacation. I'm taking some time off. And so if you want to make sure you get a little extra hit before I'm out, make sure you join tomorrow. You can register by going to linalharris.com. And let me put this in the stream real quick for you guys. All right, let me get to these questions, as many of these questions as I can get to. And let's pin that. Boom, there we go. Okay. All right, let's see here. What book would you recommend to a young person for an overview of the fundamentals? I don't know that there's a book, though. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. We're back. Pat said, can you name the basic fundamentals in each area? I can.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Free your goals, live out your dream. It's right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's lay your goals, let your greatest flow. With inspirational perspective.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Today's topic: what are the fundamentals of life? The simple steps that we take to achieve success in our lives holistically. I think one of the biggest challenges has become balance. You know, how do I stay balanced? Now, I think part of it is because we've made it too complicated. And I get the reality of work and life and the many competing priorities of life. But I also believe that when we're going after the fundamentals, that it does simplify the game. And that many of us we're spending time in areas of our lives that should get no attention. So then if I'm going to take action in the areas that I should take action, what are those areas? We're going to talk about that. But first I got a phone call here. Walter, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
Hey, well, you may remember that I stated that you and Ernest Fenton were actually a pair that should unite, and now that you're doing it, I hope you can get the feeling of what I was saying. And what it is for me is that you have an unusual ability to bring calmness into confusion. And he gets a lot of calls with people who want to do battle, whether they do a battle against him or just get some other issue, and they haven't got a strategy, and they need to let their emotions take a sidestep to what their strategy should be, and you do that. So I was just calling to say thank you for what you're doing, because you and he together is a strange combination. You know, it's not either one of you. It's like two leaders who don't battle each other, and the common cause is clarity. And I hope you guys continue to scare the stage, because you have so much to offer. And the reason that I called this morning is that I had, every now and then he used to have a joke and say, well, I'm an alcoholic who never had a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started drinking at 12. I stopped when I was 60.
Wow.
So I've got about 7.5 years of recovery, and what I wanted to do was conquer this for other folks. So I started a 501, and it was going to require hands-on. But with this epidemic, now I've got to rework my thought pattern for another strategy. And I didn't have patience before, but I listened to you, I listened to him, I listened to you guys together, and I realized I had been moving too fast as it was. Even as a youngster, I started working too fast, and I was working more and going to school, so I was doing what the older guys were doing, and it wasn't what my body was prepared for. But I thank you for what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you strength.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate Ernest, and I believe one of the reasons we complement each other is because we have similar goals, and a mutual respect for one another in terms of what we bring to the table. Ernest brings things to the table that I don't bring, and I don't even want to try to bring, and I believe he feels the same way. And I think when men are comfortable in their purpose, then we can work together. And I believe part of the conflict we have as men and as women is that because we aren't clear on our game and on our purpose, then we're competing in areas that we shouldn't even be playing in. And so thanks for that. Let's go to line one. Karen, good morning. How are you?
Well, good day, King. And just what you said, when we're not clear on our purpose and we're not pursuing our purpose, it becomes a competing match.
Yeah.
And we all have something to offer. If we all weren't important, then we all wouldn't be here.
That's right.
Everything in your car, everything on that desk, everything you see, everything matters. And I just want to send a shout out and say that I challenge my people. Set some goals for yourself.
Absolutely.
It could be small goals, and check it off. I do this with my girls, and you'd be surprised what you will open up, because the world right now, just like you said, their job is for you to fulfill their goals.
That's right.
So they created the Facebook and the game and the all them things that, because the mind, the human being wants to accomplish something every minute. So they created things to distract you from you.
That's right.
I just say to my world, it is really our time right now, my black people. We just have to get into ourselves.
Man.
Know who you are. Set goals for you, not for the system.
That's right.
The system is fading out. It is not even important about this Democrat, Republican. All that is a farce.
That's right. It is.
I
It's a
just need
distraction.
people to understand.
Yeah.
They created the paper dollar bill because the black man was manifesting everything that he needs just by being true to himself. Look at the colors of the trees. They're beautiful, right? That's nature.
Gorgeous, yeah.
It's nature. It's the tree's season. So imagine when your season comes. So if you keep busy fulfilling your goals, and when your season really comes, do you understand how much you're going to blossom?
Man.
Hey, I love you, sir. Continue doing what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Man. Let me say this. I saw a question that caught my eye here on Facebook. I always appreciate the thought leaders we have in our community. But the question was, how do we qualify fundamentals from people living different experiences? And here's the thing. When you talk about fundamentals of life, I firmly believe this. That we all are living a different experience. But there are certain fundamentals that stretch across and that permeate the barriers of the different experiences that we have. I'm going to go back and say it again. Health and well-being. Fundamentally, we know water, fruits and vegetables. And by the way, I talked about it. Some of us don't have access to that. But here's the thing. If my focus became getting access to that, if that became the goal, I could surmount it. Because in our community, we surmount the things that we want to surmount. I'll give you a perfect example. You can go to any part. You can go to the poorest part of the communities in Chicago. And if you look around, you can see where the focus is. You'll see someone standing on a bus stop with a pair of Jordans on and a $300 coat. That's where the focus is. That's where the focus is. I'm not gonna, this is what, and by the way, the focus is there because what's happened is this society, how it's set up, it's been created in many ways to interfere and hijack our personal goal setting process. So then the goals become feel good things. If I have a Gucci scarf, I'll feel better about myself. And God knows, as I look around, there's not a whole lot that I can feel good about. So then that becomes the next big goal. And by the way, this is how you know we can achieve goals. Because someone who's making $15 an hour will then make it a goal to purchase a Gucci scarf that, by the way, is $400, I believe. $15 an hour to purchase a $400 scarf. So that way, as the winter gets cold in Chicago, I can show everybody else I have worth. But that's the goal. And guess what? They achieved the goal. That's the sad part, is that as human beings, we have the ability to achieve whatever we focus on. And the same person will say, I live in a food desert. I can't afford organic vegetables. Man, this is where I am. Like, I get that victimization is real. I get that many of us are not in what you might call pristine circumstance. I get that. But victimization is becoming, and that's what victimization by its very nature is. I become a victim of the circumstance. I become a victim of my situation, and I do not feel that I have the ability nor the resources to pull myself out. And I disagree, because if you have the facility of your mind, the ability to pray to your creator, and the opportunity to put pen to paper to write down a goal, you have everything you need to go to the next level. I don't care your situation. And here's the thing, there's too much proof. There are too many people who have surmounted horrible circumstance. Too much proof. Otherwise, for you to tell me that it's different. Now, I get mental illness and things like that. I'm not talking about someone who's mentally ill. I'm not talking about someone who has gone through heavy degrees of trauma. Okay, it's clear that they need a different level of support. But many of us, man, it comes down to if you want it, you can get it. But are you focused on that fundamental? All right, so I promised that on the other side of the break, I would get into the answer. And I see the phone calls. I'll take some of those phone calls at the bottom of the hour. But I want to get into this, because what's the answer? Well, one of the fundamentals of life, when we go through the 4 pillars of life, okay, health, well-being, relationships and love, career and money, or work and money, purpose and spirituality. The place I want to start first is purpose. Because I believe purpose provides a foundation that when we know our purpose, when we know our life's purpose, we receive a different level of clarity. But not just a different level of clarity, but I believe we receive a more authentic, clear connection to the Creator. Why is that? Well, because when you begin to tap into the reason why you're here, right? The Creator has you here for a reason. And when you begin to tap into that, and you begin to passionately pursue that, you have no other course but to tap into the Creator. I cannot create what I need to create spiritually, naturally, within the realm of my purpose without talking to the Creator. Just because I know my North Star doesn't mean I always know how to surmount what's in front of me to get where I'm going. That pushes me to pray. But see, when I'm not playing a game of purpose, when I'm playing a game that's been given to me, well, there is an app for that, but you're not going to feel fulfilled. You might feel like you have the answers, but you feel lost. Like, how do you feel like you have the answers, but you still feel lost? Something's not right. That's because at the end of the day, I believe purpose, knowing your life's purpose, is the number one priority that all of us need to have. And let me be clear, it's not easy. It's not necessarily easy. And many of us, we have become victims of identity theft. You might say, okay, Linal, what do you mean by identity theft? Here's what happens. And this is one of the reasons I believe we're not focused on the fundamentals. Let me go back to the example I gave of the Gucci scarf. Why is it that I need to have a Gucci scarf to feel valuable? Here's a short answer. Because my identity's been stolen. And when I lack identity, I need other things that have identity, right? Gucci is a luxury brand. It has identity. Jordan is a luxury sneaker. It has identity. And so when I lack identity, then I'm doing everything I can to grab a hold of some level of identity, right? Because without identity, I lack value. And so then I begin to value other things. So now I need the Gucci. I gotta have it, right? Because as a human being, I'm wired to I want to feel valued. I want to feel valuable. Because by the very nature of being human, I must feel value. Why? Because you're here to provide value. We have a tremendous ripple effect, each and every one of us. Because you exist, it has an impact on me. It has an impact on my wife. It has an impact on my son. Because you exist. And then here's the thing. If you're not fulfilling your purpose, there's a chasm. There's a chasm created by that. I shared a YouTube video last night on my Facebook page. And the question is, well, are you doing your work? And I shared a summary of how Dr. King talked about his mentor. See, here's the thing. There'd be no Dr. King without the president of Howard becoming his mentor. There'd be no doctor. So everybody has a purpose. Everybody has value. But if you don't know your purpose, then you lack value. And when you lack value, you lack identity. And because you don't have identity, you start reaching for things that have identity. And this is how a luxury brand can sell you strands of cotton or cashmere, whatever it might be, that really equate maybe to $30 or $40 on the high end for $400. Because you want to feel valuable. You want to be seen as valuable. And so in many ways, all of these things serve as a distraction to purpose. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with having nice things. Unless it's serving as a distraction to your true identity and purpose. But what happens is many of us have undergone identity theft. And I'm not talking about the kind of identity theft that leaves us violated because someone stole our name and our social identifications, and they get our credit lines and they're out there purchasing things and that we didn't approve or that we don't have the opportunity to enjoy. I'm not talking about that kind of identity theft. I'm talking about something much worse. You might say, Linal, there's something worse than that? Can you imagine waking up, your account is empty, your credit cards are maxed because somebody stole your identity? You're like, there's nothing worse than that. Oh, yes, there is. Yes, there is. You know what's worse than that? Moving through life, never truly understanding who you are, never really knowing why you're alive, never identifying your purpose, never having the opportunity to act with power, create with power, and connect to the Creator in the capacity that He put you here for. That's worse than that. But somehow in this world, we feel like the worst thing ever is to lose all my money. The worst thing ever is to lose all my possessions. The worst thing ever is for somebody to take my identity. It's not the worst thing. Many of us right now are living the worst lives because we have no idea who we are. And you feel it in your soul. There's an emptiness inside of you. You feel lost. You wake up feeling lost. You go to bed feeling lost. That's worse. Money can be replaced. Credit cards can be replaced. Most of us have identity theft protection. You can call a few 800 numbers. You have an uncomfortable month. Everything will get replaced. But your purpose, that can't be replaced. Your identity, that can't be replaced. See, I'm talking about the kind of identity theft that happens at a young age. Classmate tells you, you're ugly. Nobody likes you. You're nothing. And then somewhere along the way, you believe that. Maybe it got followed up by a cousin, by an aunt, by an uncle. Maybe there was some trauma. Maybe there was some abuse. Somewhere along the way, you begin believing, I'm nothing. I'm not worth anything. I'm not good enough. And that begins to seep down into your spirit. And when it seeps down into your spirit, it begins to disrupt the connection you have to the Creator. You begin to forget that you're a child of God, that you're here for a reason. And when you get disconnected from God, when you get disconnected from your Creator, you get disconnected from your greatness. So now here you are. You don't believe you're great. Many of us in our community, we've been socialized to believe because we have melanin in our skin, you can't be great. Many of us have been socialized to believe that because your ancestors were slaves, you'll never amount to anything. Many of us have been socialized to believe that you can't be as smart as anybody else because, you have brown skin. You have melanin. Many of us have been socialized to believe you'll never accomplish anything. Identity theft. Identity theft. There was a point in time in your life where you could be anything you wanted to be. Sometimes I come home, my son will be running on all fours through the kitchen down to the hallway. I say, Legend, what are you doing? Daddy, I'm a zebra. Right? His imagination for what he can be and what he can do is just broad. The next moment he'll turn the corner, he'll come back and go, raw. Oh, whoa, what happened? I'm a lion now. Where he's living in his life at 3 years old, he can be whatever he wants to be. He can do whatever he wants to do. He'll jump off the bed and say, I'm a bird, I'm flying, Daddy, and he'll land. I said, that was a short flight. He doesn't care. It was a flight nonetheless. Why? Because I believe young children, they're still close to the Creator. Their spirit is connected, and their imaginations are flourishing as creators. The other day, he pulled me in his room. He said, "Daddy, I want to build a zoo, but I need you to make the wall so the animals can't get out." We took his blocks and his Legos and started to put the wall. He said, "Now I want to make a waterfall." Okay, let's take the blue Legos. We made a waterfall. Now I want to make a tower for the lion. He's the king. Okay, we made a tower. But he's a creator. And when he looked at what we had done, what I saw were blocks with gaps in them and animals all over the place. What he saw was beautiful zoo, waterfalls. But that's the power of creation. But what happens is somewhere in life, our identity gets stolen. We forget that we're creators. We forget that we're dreamers. We forget that life is full of possibility. Life is full of possibility. If you have breath in your lungs, life is full of possibility. I don't care about your circumstance. I don't care about your situation. You can give me the most dire of circumstance, the most dire situation. If that person, they want better, they believe in possibility, they have a vision for their life, they're willing to take on the fundamentals and focus, possibility will manifest. That's how we've been created. It's a universal truth. Problem is, we're not connected to our greatness. We're not connected to our greatness because we lack identity. We lack identity because we lack purpose. And we lack true connection to the Creator. Because as long as we don't know why we're here, He can't fully use us. You think you feel connected this morning? If you don't have purpose, there's a completely different level of connection. Completely different level of connection that's available to you. But what's happened is our identities have been captured in phrases like, "You can't do that." And we believe it. Sometimes they give us data. Sometimes they give us assessments. Sometimes they have us take tests. They come back, we say, "Well, what the test say?" The test says you can't. We believe it. Identity stolen. Somebody told us you're not enough. And the reason you're not enough is X. The reason you're not enough is Y. The reason you're not enough is Z. What happens is we believe it, and our identity is stolen. It's gone. Maybe somebody said, "You won't ever." Worse yet, maybe you stepped into a talent. You stepped into a gift. And as you stepped into that gift, somebody said, "Well, that's weird." And you decided not to step there anymore. And in that moment where someone called your gift weird, where somebody called your talent weird, by the way, your talent is a gift that God endowed you with that nobody else has, that He gave you for a purpose. But because somebody said it's weird, your identity was stolen in that moment. You haven't even turned back. That thing that someone said was weird, that thing that somebody laughed at, you're afraid to do it now. And your freedom is on the other side of conquering that giant, because that's who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be weird. Hey, I know I'm weird. The things that drive me don't drive other people. And in this world, they call that weird. But guess what? I'm okay with being weird as long as I'm aligned with my purpose and I'm connected to my Creator and I know why I'm here. Then call me weird. Call me different. Call me whatever you want to call me, because you can't steal my identity, because it's grounded in the purpose that God has put in my life. What's your purpose? Do you know? See, because here, at the end of the day, when you step into purpose, the truth is you can. The truth is you are more than enough because you breathe. The truth is you will if you say you will. And the truth is you're special and you're unique. And because you're willing to step out in your uniqueness, it triggers other people who aren't willing. And they call that weird. But you're unique, you're special, and you're exhibiting and embodying the gifts that God has given you. And that's a beautiful thing. And when you begin to align that and funnel it into your purpose, brother, sister, I'm telling you, something beautiful begins to happen. There's a freedom. You get free of all this stuff. Free of all these things. Free of all this rhetoric. Free of all these politics. Some of us will weight it down right now. You can't wait till November 3rd. You think you're going to feel better. You're not going to feel better. Just be a new day. Something different. Because when you're rooted in your purpose, it doesn't matter. And by the way, I'm not talking about not taking responsibility. I take responsibility. My family and I will vote. My wife and I will vote. But I have no anxiety on the other side. Because no matter what happens November 3rd, November 4th, I'll be living my purpose. I'll be living my purpose. And that's what matters. That's my path. That's my goal. That's my focus. This morning, my heart is heavy, man. Because when you look at purpose, I believe purpose is the number one fundamental of life. I did some work years ago to identify, I'm like, how many people know their purpose on the planet? So I started doing Google searches and reading and looking at different things. How many people know their purpose on the planet? I found one figure that said less than 2%. Less than 2% of 7.6 billion. Less than 2%. Started to do the math on that. I said, man, that's not a lot of people. That means the majority of people will live and die, never know their purpose. They'll never know their purpose. And that's when I began to say, okay, well, if my purpose is to help myself and others live the best life possible, then I got to help people find their purpose. I have to help people identify their purpose. I have to help people step into their purpose and really begin to connect to their greatness, their seed of greatness. Lord, God, help me. Like, how do I help? I took on an impossible goal after that. And I said, I don't know how, but the impact that I believe I'm supposed to make in my lifetime is if I can take this to less than 2%, by the way, it's like 1.6%. If I can take it from 1.6, 1.7% of people on this planet knowing their purpose to 5%, if I can do 5%, and in my lifetime it's still within that 5% to push it to 10% in the next generation, that's a good life. That's a good life. That's a legacy. I don't need anything for it. If I could just leave the remnants of what God gave me and somebody else, that's good enough. But that's it. So then this morning, we talk about purpose. It leaves with the question is, then if purpose is a fundamental, what's your work? What's your purpose and what's your work? And are you really doing that? Are you really doing that this morning? Now, I imagine that there's a big question right now. People saying, okay, Linal, you talk purpose, but purpose is complicated. And one of the things I did is I said, okay, there's something special about what's happening right now in the world, this virtual environment. And so I'm gonna teach a virtual course on purpose. And if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, linalharris.com. LINAL HARRIS.com. And if you are committed, if you realize in this conversation, we're talking about the fundamentals of life, you're like, hey man, I need support here. This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. Even though it's virtual, it's still limited for effectiveness. And so if this hits you in some kind of way, and in terms of purpose and spirituality, you realize that, hey, I need to take that fundamental way of being around purpose. I lack the knowledge. I see there's an opportunity. Then I'll challenge you. Join the course, November 7th. Join the course. And begin to make the shift in your life that you need to make. Now, I want to talk about the willingness many of us have to bet on ourselves. See, because when you start talking about fundamentals, I've asked this question before. Would you bet on yourself? Like, would you bet on yourself? I'm looking at my producer when I say it. Like, would you bet on yourself? Shaking his head, yeah. But then the question is, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? And for many of us, because where I'm about to go is challenging, I dare you to focus on what you're about to hear. I dare you to focus on what you're about to hear and lose your addiction to getting distracted. Because again, remember, part of what's getting underneath our ability to live the fundamentals of life is distraction. So I just dare you to focus. See, because I'm not asking you whether you bet on yourself or to be facetious. It's a serious question. Like, if you're a child of God, you have the ability to create, the ability to manifest. You're like, what? Do I? I didn't know I had that. Yes, you do. See, here's the thing, man. This is not the knowledge they're teaching. In order to get through 8th grade, you have to know the Constitution of the United States. You got to take a test on the Constitution to get past 8th grade. They'll never teach you about your greatness. They'll never teach you how to manifest. So then it comes down to, when you start asking questions like, would you bet on yourself? People, they're not that sure. I'm going to tell you all, as a certified ontological coach, executive coach, and the work that I do week in and week out with human beings, I'm continually blown away by how many people will pass up the opportunity to fully invest in themselves. Boy, you put a price to something, people get offended. It's almost as if this work right here should be free. And I'm going to tell you something. For me, it's about sustaining the work. It's about investing in the work. So I'm clear on the value of the work that I do. But the sad part is, many folks, I believe they're clear too, but they won't bet on themselves. And when I say bet, I don't necessarily mean bet. But when you talk about investing, right? Investing is I'm taking a chance because I believe there'll be ROI. There'll be return on my investment. There'll be return. But what happens is, man, we get so caught up by the distractions of this world that we begin to forget what really matters. Again, this is one of the reasons why, we'll look nice. We'll buy expensive clothes and then complain about the price of vegetables. Doesn't make sense. Like, when you think about it, it just doesn't make sense. But we're completely distracted. Somehow we've gotten miswired and the neurons in the brain, they're misfiring, and the goals that we have set up, they're not our goals. They're the goals of somebody else. Buy this, consume that. And we happily do it. And as soon as somebody suggests, hey, invest in yourself, it's a great deal of fear. You gotta ask yourself why. Were you afraid the last time you bought something for over $500? Was there fear? There likely was excitement. Oh, I can't wait to put this on. I'm gonna look good. Excitement. Here's the thing. When you did that 2 years ago, you don't even wear that outfit anymore. Maybe it don't fit. Maybe it's out of style. But then someone says, hey, you want to invest? Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that now. Now, you know, that's quite a bit. So when I ask, would you really bet on yourself? I'm asking for a reason. And here's the thing, man. I'm asking from experience as well. My wife and I, we spend a great deal of money on self-development. We spend money on self-development in terms of education. We spend money on seminars. We spend money on conferences. We spend money on workshops. We spend money to travel back before COVID to different seminars, workshops, and conferences. We spend money on mastermind groups. We spend money on coaching. She has a coach. I have a coach. We spend money on therapy. We spend money on books. We spend money on self-development DVDs. We spend money on CDs. We spend money on anything that we believe will take us to the next level. So then what happens is people look back and they say, well, hey, how have you achieved what you've achieved? It's because I've been willing to invest in myself. My wife, one of the reasons I married her is she was willing to invest in herself. I remember early on, conversation we had about her joining a coach training group and the passion she had about it. I said, okay, you that passionate about development, I can be with you. But then what happens is, when it comes to our own development, we press pause. Can't do that. You know, I won't have anything to show for that. And here's what happens. The way the society is set up, and the trick of this society, we see more value in things than we see in knowledge, than we see in our true development. Over the last few months, I've covered the 7 steps of personal development. We went through each step. I got emails and notes. Linal, this is so good. But I'm going to tell you something as a coach, as someone who's been doing this work for over a decade, here's what I know. You can know the 7 steps, but if you're not willing to give yourself to the foundation that allows you to take on the steps, you'll never be successful. And what's the foundation? First and foremost, purpose. You have to know your life's purpose. You have to know why you're alive. You have to know why you're breathing. And it is not just because of a big bang and some organisms that the cells start to split and combine. It's not because of, you know, millions of years of evolution and we just happen to show up. It's bigger than that. We're all intricately connected. Everything is connected. The Creator had a purpose. No matter how quick or how long it took, He had a purpose. He had a purpose. And the fact that you're alive, there's a purpose behind that. Until you really know it, you can't truly live and enjoy the abundance that life has to offer. So when are you going to slow down? Take a moment. Take a real hard look at your life. Take a hard look at the fundamentals of life. I got a question on Facebook. Somebody said, well, What if you have a hard time taking on the fundamentals? And my answer to you is the reason we have a hard time taking on the fundamentals is we don't have a clear why. Why would you take good care of your body? It seems like a crazy question, because you would think most people say, well, of course I would, but we don't. And the reason we don't is because we're not clear on why. You say, well, Linal, why should be to live a long life and not to be sick? But so many of us live shorter lives than we should. So many of us get sick. And until you really understand your why is connected to others, that your why comes from a deep place of purpose, and the only way to fully step into that why is a connection to spirit, a connection to your spiritual essence, a connection to the Creator, aligned with your purpose. Then all of a sudden the scales come off your eyes. You say, well, wait a second. The longer I live, the more people I can help. The better I live, the more people I can help. Maybe I can be an example of what purpose can do. The better my relationship is, the closer my wife and I are, the more communion and harmony we have, the more peace we have in our home, the more people I can help, the more people who are looking. The more emphasis we put on raising our son, the more emphasis we put on raising our children, the more people I can help. It matters. The stronger my business is, the more responsible I am in my business, the better example I can be, the better I can sustain the message, the more people I can help. If God is blessing me financially, the more responsible I can be, the more giving I can be, the more people I can help. Those are the fundamentals. It all comes through purpose. I don't know what I would have done if I had come into this pandemic without purpose, without clarity. That the reason I'm here, the reason I will persist, the reason why I'll make it to the other side is because God has a purpose for my life that's not fully fulfilled. And to know that, to have it rest in your spirit brings about a certain peace no matter what's happening, no matter how the wind is blowing. And that's a priceless gift. And there was a point in my life where I was willing to pay anything to get that gift. Do you really expect an ROI on the self-development investments you make? Do you really expect it? Are you requiring it of yourself? Right now, I'm talking to my clients. What level of accountability do you hold yourself to once we get off the phone, once we get off Zoom? What level of accountability do you hold yourself to? Do you really expect ROI? My Slay Your Goals members, for the $37 you pay a month, you should be expecting 100 times that back into value if you're holding yourself accountable to that, if you're following the fundamentals. When was the last time you invested in you? Did you see ROI? Like I said, man, this morning, my heart's been heavy, and I've gotten out as much as I can get out. When I was in corporate America and on my professional journey, the companies I worked for.
You have 47 minutes. Stay in communication with me. Do what you have.
Y'all know it ain't nothing but a little resistance. I got a new producer. He's getting it together. I told him last week he got one mistake. He got the one. He got it out. Next week won't be none, right, bro? That's it. My man. Here's the deal. When I was in corporate America, man, and by the way, the callers, I see you guys. I need to get this out, though. When I was in corporate America, they would invest in my development. Thousands and thousands of dollars. See, because successful organizations and successful people get this. I give a webinar on Mondays for free because I get that not everybody has the means. But are you even willing to invest the time? By the way, if you didn't know about the webinar, you can go to linalharris.com and register for free. But see, here's the thing. Many of us, we're not even willing to invest the time. Why? Because we become so distracted. So distracted with the things that are not fundamental. So distracted. Many of you, you'll say, oh, well, I got to work. But if you get a chance to go to lunch or do something else outside of work, you'll take that time. But when it comes to you, when it comes to investing in you, there's so much resistance. Have you gotten curious about why? Have you gotten curious about why? When I think about who I was 20 years ago, the young man I was, the feeling of being lost, unable to really, I didn't understand the fundamentals. And I think about the return on my investment and how that investment has not only given to me, it's given to my family, it's given to you all who listen every Sunday. The ROI has been incredible. And I'm going to tell you, that's why there's resistance. It's not magic. When I look at myself, I'm not super special and different outside of God's purpose for me, outside of the talents he gave me that I've learned to utilize. It's simply because I believe that if I invested, it would yield a return. And this morning, as we begin to tackle the fundamentals, this is part one. As we begin to tackle the fundamentals, the first one is purpose. What's your purpose? And are you at a point where if you don't know your purpose, that you're tired of living lost? You're tired of living without direction, so tired that you're willing to do whatever it takes? If that's the case, this workshop is for you. And here's the thing. You might say, well, Linal's selling stuff now. No, this right here is my purpose. This is my work. What I'm trying to do is get you to tap into the work so you can tap into yours. It's a mission. It's a mission, not a sales approach. I would have you demand of yourself a new passion for learning when it comes to the fundamentals. I would have you demand of yourself a new passion and discipline to invest in the fundamentals. I would have you demand of yourself that any distraction that you see this week that does not allow you to play a fundamental game of life, you cut it off. You root it out. Because, man, that's how serious this thing is. Some of you right now, you got things in your cart. You got things in multiple carts online. And it's between those things and your purpose. Empty the cart. Let it go. Invest in you. It's the thing that's going to give back this morning. You want to reach your potential? We'll be talking about that next week. You want to truly reach your potential? It's time to start focusing on the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals of life and dig into the gifts and talents that are already inherent inside of you, the gifts that God has given you. Many of us don't even know our talents, man, because we're not asking the question. Many of us don't know our strengths because we're not asking the question. Many of us don't know our passions because we're not asking the question. And these are fundamental questions of life. You willing to play a fundamental game? Like Tim Duncan, it can take you to the championship of life. Simple fundamentals. For more, you can go to my website, linalharris.com, LINALHARRIS.com. I'm your host and life coach, Linal Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM. My purpose is your success, and that you can take to the bank. Thank you for listening. God bless each and every one of you. Until next week, stay blessed, and stay safe. We love you. All right, you guys.
Talk of Chicago and the voice of the nation.
Share the stream.
1690 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
And man,
The security guard is
until next Sunday or until tomorrow on Monday when you join, I'll see you guys then. I appreciate your support. And man, I love each and every one of you, man. I'm passionate about this thing, if you can't tell. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the gift of purpose, and I want to spread it. They say COVID-19 is contagious, man. My prayer is that this message is just as contagious, more contagious. And if you heard it today, you caught it. Love you guys. See you next week.